You're listening to Across the Pondcast. Cybersecurity rants and war stories from both sides of the Atlantic.
This episode is unique. We had Solst on to discuss some open source versus security researcher kind of stuff that went down on X or Twitter, and things didn't really go to plan. All I can say is the first sort of hour of this podcast is all legit and is the conversation we had after the thing that happened. But after this episode is over, after the outro music stops, you'll notice there's about 20 minutes left, and I really recommend that you listen to how the episode actually started. The chaos, the prank, very much appreciated, and that's why we decided to include it. So if you have a spare 20 minutes after the episode officially ends, I definitely recommend listening. Now, enjoy the actual episode. Hello and welcome to Across the Pondcast, a show where we talk and occasionally rant about cybersecurity topics with perspectives from both sides of the Atlantic. I'm Tib3rius. I'm joined, as always, by my open source co-host, Mr. Andy Swift, and today we're joined by Solst, ex-pentester, current security engineer, and the number one fan of Hacking, the Art of Exploitation by John Erickson. Solst, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Andy, how are you doing?
I am discombobulated.
A little bit?
You'll find out why in a minute.
Probably find out now.
I've just spotted actually my copy of The Art of Exploitation up there on the bookshelf, which is what I'm looking up there. It's literally in the corner up there behind another book. I can see it popping up.
Is it annotated?
I can't.
Did you just post-it notes in it?
I can't see it. It's I imagine it's got loads of highlighted sections in it for all the important bits of the book. Yeah. It's the first edition.
Wow.
I know.
Second edition is the drier one. But to explain a little bit about why Andy and myself are a little discombobulated, we'll probably leave this at the end of the episode. But I reached out to Solst on X and asked if they'd like to come on the podcast and discuss, various things relating to the FFmpeg situation and open source software in general. They said yes, and then joined with no webcam on, which I expected, but also joined with a voice changer, which I did not expect, but I was okay with. It was quite a deep voice. We started the podcast and did about, 20 minutes or so of recording, where it's sort of, I don't know, it was odd. You'll have to watch the edit at the end of the episode. But then it was revealed when Solst turned the voice changer off that it was my friend Ali Diamond, ending with Ali.
Prominent just poster.
Yes. So it was a very good prank. Very good prank. It caught us both for a loop. I was just sat here thinking the questions that Solst is asking are a bit antagonistic, but okay, whatever. We'll have some fun. But yeah, so now
we've guilt tripped him into actually staying, which is great.
I'll have to talk about FFmpeg.
We'll talk about it a little bit. Okay, this isn't going to be focused too much on FFmpeg, but I think FFmpeg is like a springboard into some of the issues that are affecting open source software development and stuff. But before we start, this show is made possible thanks to our sponsors. If you want to sponsor an episode, please send an email to sponsors@acrossthepondcast.net for more details. So I'll do the brief summary of the FFmpeg situation again, just for some context. And the FFmpeg Twitter account is a kind of a shit posting account, but also they claim is to reveal the issues that affect open source development more than being specifically about FFmpeg. And they had a tweet which effectively said that Google had used their AI to find a bug and it was a valid bug in FFmpeg, and had submitted a bug report and were basically expecting volunteers to fix the bug that was detected by AI. And it sort of had a bunch of issues that were generated from that? Should these big companies be, or should anyone really be expecting the volunteers who code open source projects to fix all bugs? And also the general thing, which is, if we're going to use AI to find bugs, does it have the potential to sort of overwhelm open source software developers as well? And let's start the episode off with the question that I did have at the top that I didn't even get to ask in the last iteration, the prank. But the question is, do open source software developers have an ethical responsibility to protect their users? Solst, what do you think?
Yeah, I think anyone writing code ethically wants the code to protect everyone using that code. So yes, absolutely. And what I found interesting about this situation is that at a surface level, it's an open source problem due to a lack of funding. But actually, that translates very well into not open source, into just like in the industry itself, because to a certain extent, every company has a lack of funding with security. Well, maybe except Amazon and Google, right? But on a smaller scale, everyone could use more funding, and everyone has problems patching bugs. It's exacerbated in open source because they're volunteers, so it's not particularly fun to address. And a continuous onslaught of like bug bounty findings and of varying degrees of quality, and like which ones are good, which ones are bad, triaging all of that. Like the process of triage is before we even know if it's a bug or not, the process of triage is time consuming. So it's not particularly fun. And they don't have policies, or it's not as common, for an open source project to have like compliance requirements for them to. Do they have an ethical obligation to fix? Yeah. But then who's actually putting in the work to apply those fixes? And that's why like the recent conversation about FFmpeg, the part about open source is interesting, but it does really well at illustrating the problem at scale across the entire industry.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's like ethical responsibility and sort of like a general responsibility. And I would never say that it's a tricky one, right? Because they are volunteers and they are writing code voluntarily. And so, yeah, they effectively do get to control what they write and decide what gets written when. That's entirely up to them. I guess the whole point of open source is, if you don't really like how an open source project is being managed, you can just fork it and do it yourself. And that has happened in the history of open source projects. There have been projects where people didn't like how a project was going, forked it, and it's basically become the better project, right? We saw that, honestly, in like the cybersecurity related one that springs to mind is NetExec, right? Which used to be Crack MapExec. Now, that was a slightly different situation. There was like money involved, I think, at some point. It was kind of weird. I don't know the full details. All I know is that is a really good example of where people didn't like how Crack MapExec's sort of organizational structure worked and what they were doing. And so they forked it into NetExec. And now NetExec is effectively the only one being developed now. So, but the other thing is, and I know I don't want to bring this back to FFmpeg every single time, but FFmpeg does have a line which is basically there are no warranties. So that kind of does give them an out as well. Like they can point to it, well, we tell you you're running this code, we're not guaranteeing anything.
Yeah, which is fine. But then if they end up causing harm, or someone gets harmed by using FFmpeg, it's still not, even though they point to the thing saying, oh, it's not my fault, it's still like not nice to know that you're causing harm to people. So you would want, ideally, to make your software safe and not pose risk to anyone.
Yeah. What do you think, Swift?
Yeah, still shell shocked. I think there are different types of open source projects. Some are set up very much as kind of hobby hacker type of things. You do them for enjoyment and pure enjoyment, and they kind of accidentally end up becoming kind of a big thing that some big corpos end up investing in and are taking on using, and then all of a sudden there's a mass reliance upon it. And then I think there's those types of OSS projects that are They come about for different reasons, far more almost professional reasons, where they're developing something for a very specific purpose and then it becomes quite important rather than just it's a hobby and it's fun. And I think there's a point at which the contributors and the original developers of it, they need to want to carry on developing and building what they're doing. To be answering that many bug requests, like daily almost, they need to have a real want to stick with that project, for that to still have that love for that project to carry on going. So I think there's an element of, if you recognize the thing you've built has got that big in the world and that, some seriously large companies are now using / relying upon it, I think you got to have a conversation with yourself and fellow maintainers at some point that sort of goes, do we want to be maintaining this and carrying this responsibility of, if we screw up something and have all these big issues, a load of people are going to come down on us on a ton of bricks, and then we've got that ethical responsibility to go and actually address all the problems we've introduced. And that becomes a bit of a problem as well. So I think there's a bit of recognizing you need to do yourself instead of shit posting on X about and bitching about the subject and topic. I think you probably need to go away and have a little word with yourself and just go, is this what we really want to do? Because if it is, there's probably a better way of handling it and interacting with that company. And then vice versa again. I think if you're a big organization and you are investing and using open source tooling a lot and you are actively hunting out and seeking bugs in that particular thing that you are using at the core of your product, you should probably be contributing quite heavily to that project. And even if you're contributing, going back to Google and people like that, they have such a wealth of, oh my God, like teams of developers and like some of the best developers on the planet, for crying out loud. Like they've definitely got resource to spare to add to something like this to help out. And if they don't, funding it properly, I think there needs to be another conversation there. But,
I would hope they fund it, because they could go another route where they're like, they can associate a dollar like value of using the library, and they can be like, oh, actually we can just fork it and maintain our own copy of it to run YouTube or whatever they use it for, and that wouldn't be contributing to the open source community, right? And I think that would be worse for them to maintain their own fork. It's actually better and ideal. Like you would want them to contribute to the open source library, and that anyone else could use. But I agree, like those are two very important points. Like one, if a giant company is like literally like top 3 richest companies in the world, maybe, you should be directly contributing, and they do. And so that's like a whole branch of like how much does Google contribute and how much is enough compared to their use. But on the other hand, you also mentioned something very important, which is the like psychological safety of the maintainers themselves, because you want people to be enthusiastic about maintaining, and that's such an important thing that you would kill their enthusiasm you would discourage people from maintaining large open source projects if it becomes like intimidating and you have to fix 10,000 bucks per second.
That's a crazy good point. I say that because this morning we have a team call with my group of merry bandit pen testers on a Friday morning, and something I said and mentioned on our Friday call this morning was about open source projects, because we all use them as pen testers, red teamers, etc. In one way or another, whether it's a tooling, whether it's a library and the operating system we're using, it runs so deep and there are so many things. And if you do actually contribute to projects, you learn a crazy amount of stuff from the development side of the world that is cybersecurity when you are actively contributing to things. So I sort of said to him this morning, I was like, if you're actively contributing to stuff, maybe go and have a look at the things. Sorry, you're actively using stuff. Go and have a look at the things you're using. See if there's a way you can contribute to them, because you will learn so much by doing and going through that process. The trouble is, what some of them see on the flip side of that is exactly the thing you mentioned, is that the thing that's putting me off contributing is that if my contribution is bad, or if it goes wrong, or if it gets shot down in social media, or I get a sudden responsibility applied to me where I have to fix X, Y, Z, and it just becomes almost like a second job at that point. And someone literally said back to us, like, I don't know if I want that. I want to contribute, but I don't know if I want that responsibility. And I kind of get that. And to be honest, I've never even thought about that. I've contributed to a few other projects and that's never crossed my mind, but it sure as hell is now. But I didn't think about that at the time, or that angle. But it is definitely all of this outcry I think it is definitely putting a few people off, which is not what we want to do.
And that's kind of the benefit of when they mention like send patches. obviously the Twitter shitposting account is like just unnuanced and just overly opinionated maybe. But the main idea of like send patches, there is some merit to it in that it does help the contributors. Other than reducing the workload, it's also less responsibility. Like psychologically, you don't feel like, oh shit, I have to figure out how to fix it as well. Now there's a vulnerability because of me. But instead they're like, oh, here's a patch, just merge it. And it's, oh, well, it's not too bad then. So it makes it less intimidating in general.
Yeah, these things are all born out of a love for a project, right? We got to be fostering that.
Yeah, the most important thing is keeping people motivated, for sure. For sure. And that's like something that weakens or like unmotivates people from a project is in itself the vulnerability, the denial of service, right? Someone was saying that even like internally in companies, if you add too much friction, oh, you need to do these 17 things before merging code. People are like, this is too much. Maybe I'll just bypass these controls, or maybe I'll just quit, and that's a sort of denial of service in a way.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's an active block to creativity. It's not what we want. Not the way it should go.
So I take it you probably feel, I'll just ask the question. Should security researchers in general should there be an expectation or even maybe encouragement to provide patches for vulnerabilities they find, specifically in open source software? Because I think the problem I see is a lot of security researchers work with closed source projects where like you just can't provide a patch. If you're on a bug bounty program. Yeah. So there's that mindset where like, oh, bug bounty program, you find a cross-site scripting flaw, you find a SQL injection, you submit it. Here's how you do it, but you have no control over how it's fixed. But for open source software, do you feel like if not an expectation, there should be definitely an encouragement to provide patches?
Encouragement, absolutely. Expectation, you can try. The problem is in practice, can you actually submit a reasonable, correct, patch? Not always. That's the problem. And so sometimes, and I think AI can eventually help improve that. But so sometimes the fix is simple. Sometimes you're missing a bounds check. Like you add an if statement, you fixed something, right? Great. Like that should be easy. You can send a pull request for that. Sometimes it's more complicated. So I've been in situations like in internal companies where we find a bug and we ask developers to fix, and they're like, well, can you help fix that? And there are scenarios where I said, no, I actually don't know how to fix this because your code base is actually quite complex and I wouldn't know what approach to take for this fix. Now, some fixes are simple. Some fixes require like re-architecting some components, right? So it depends on the complexity of the fix. That's why like send patches is good on social media, but in practice, can you actually send patches every time? Not really. It depends.
It was also kind of interesting, I found, because obviously part of that Twitter account is complaining that volunteer devs shouldn't be forced to work for free, which I agree with. Don't get me wrong. Sure. But then at the same time, it's like they're also demanding patches, which invariably does require kind of forcing someone to work for free. So it's like, don't force us to work for free, but you have to. So I think expecting and definitely encouraging, I think, is more of the way to go there. Because, ultimately, if you did say, well, we don't fix bugs unless the security researcher sends a patch, which I think that would be a nightmare scenario.
Oh, absolutely. That wouldn't work. Yeah. And that's why, like, we realized that AI can find bugs. So these were found by AI. And so Google has separately another project where AI can fix bugs. And so it was kind of like, well, can you combine them? And that could be a good start. Now, the fix that AI submits isn't always going to be a good one, but at least for a few of them, it would actually save a lot of time. So that is a direction that I think everyone is heading towards.
Yeah. And especially in this case as well, because I believe the patch in this case was a 2-line fix.
Yeah, 3 or 4 lines maybe, I think. So in this case also, it was fixed by, his name is, Michael Niedermayer. I think he's one of the main contributors for FMPEG for like 24 years maybe. So in this case, like he knows his code base, he knows how to fix that. It was fixed like I think the next day after that bug report was filed. And so in those cases, like a lot of projects have like core maintainers that like their skill level is just like they really understand the code base really well. They know how the fix should look like. And in those cases, I would trust them more than anyone else to fix, right? And so if I'm working on a project, or if I find a bug on a project and I know that they have maintainers that are like cracked like that, then, you know, I'll just reach out to them and like, hey, can you help me with a fix here? And usually they're like, oh yeah, easy, and bam, done, right? And so in this case, you have that, but like, how do you scale that, right? That's the problem. It's like, even if we start finding like 1,000 bugs per second or whatever, you know, like they can't possibly fix all of them.
Yeah, no, I agree. And there's also, and I think we asked this question in the previous iteration of this podcast, but the question was, are bad patch attempts more valuable to developers than no patch at all? And I can't answer that. I think I said that last time. Like, I'm not a developer, really.
I don't know, but that's kind of like, would you rather get shot in the arm or in the leg? It's like, I don't know, like both are kind of bad. Like,
so yeah, I mean, it's possible that a bad patch, while it fixes the issue, might not be the style of code that they want, or it might introduce new bugs, or it might even make the functionality significantly slower. So there's a lot. Sometimes when fixing a bug, you have to balance the actual fix with potential performance issues that the fix implements. Like, and that's a huge thing.
No, I agree. That's a good point also, because if someone submits a bad fix, the maintainers have to review the fix, because then they're like, oh, there's a fix. And I'm like, wait, what is this shit? And then they're going through it and they're like, oh, what do we even say? And now they have to respond. And do they start from scratch, or do they like tell you to, you know, it's adding actually more work in a way.
And that's why I think it just depends on the project. I mean, FFmpeg seemed to be okay with just, send us the patch. I don't believe for a second there isn't a review process for FFmpeg. If there isn't, that would be very surprising. But it's such a huge piece of software and such a big project, and it's honestly super important that I imagine every single patch that's submitted goes through the core group of maintainers or the core group of reviewers at some point. So, yeah.
You'd like to think so. But I mean, just thinking back over like the last year or so, there's been cases where stuff has slipped into, like malicious code has slipped into like various large-scale projects. It's not unheard of.
Well, yeah, there's like several software supply chain attacks have happened simply because the devs got overwhelmed and they gave control to someone else who had been contributing.
Yeah.
And they were contributing good code. And then, but that's a completely separate issue. But it does show, like, there is a tremendous amount of pressure on open source developers. And this actually neatly slides into my next question, because part of the whole drama is not the right word for it, but I can't really think of a better one right now. Part of the whole drama was the sort of back and forth between that account and Tavis Ormandy, who is an ex-Google security researcher. And, you know, I think felt that there was a lot of nuance and tried to bring that up. And they kind of accused him of sort of using coercive language or threatening language towards developers. And I don't think it was necessarily coercive language. I think part of the definition that I read on coercion is there have to be an intent behind it. And I don't think he intended to be coercive. But I also think that they did have a point where, and my question is this, are the current standards we use regarding responsible disclosure perhaps too harsh or too harshly worded for open source projects? Because it is a standard in our industry to be like, well, you get 90 days to fix this bug, or we'll disclose them to users, right? And for us, for security researchers, for pen testers, that's a good thing, because ultimately that means, well, it either gets fixed and therefore no users are affected, or less users are affected, or users are at least aware of it. But I can absolutely 100% see from a developer perspective, that can come across as kind of a bit threatening. And so I do wonder, do we need to really update the standards and sort of be a bit more gentle when it comes to open source?
So I think this is something both of you, and Andy, I want to hear your opinion on that, but I think both of you are very familiar being pen testers about the challenges of like calling someone's baby ugly. You know, when there's an issue with a client, you have to like communicate, like pay a lot of attention on communicating in a very like enthusiastic way of being helpful, making sure they're understanding, using the right words. And that's challenging, actually. It's not easy to always find the right words, especially when someone can be easily get defensive. Especially like sometimes a client's in a meeting with their boss, with their, you know, you don't want to feel like you're targeting someone. And it's similar here in that, so obviously Tavis Romedy is an absolute legend in the industry. Like he's one of the greatest bug finders ever, right? Researchers ever. And we know that. But also we are completely in a bubble in our security culture bubble. And what that means is we often use terminology. We're used to going to conferences and talking about like, oh, I popped the shell. One of the things they got stuck on is like pop. It's like, oh, what if a developer gets popped? And then like I think they misinterpreted that word, which for us is it's obvious what you mean. Like, but a lot of our terminology and our perspective as a whole is very focused on, we use like offensive nomenclature. We like think about, like for us, it's not subjective. Like we don't take anything personally when we talk about compromise. We're used to that. When we talk to a developer, sometimes they feel it's very personal, or they might misinterpret your words, or they might think you're exaggerating the impact sometimes, because we're used to thinking in the worst case all the time. So I think, I mean, I don't know, Andy, what do you think of that whole idea of like how to communicate about risk?
I think during responsible disclosure processes and things like that, some people can come across as a bit heavy-handed when they are reporting and they are setting the rules, and I've seen people go in straight away and go out, this is our policy, you have X number of days to do this, we have this, we have this, we have this, here's our evidence, here's all of our research. And it just comes across as very blunt, very heavy-handed, and not like you want to have a conversation that actually help improving. The way I tend to approach people if I'm reporting a bug of this, it's actually got very weird today. I'll get to that in a second. But the way I usually report bugs, I don't lead with you've got X number of days. I start with a conversation with the people, trying to get the right people in the room and have the right conversations. And I gently lead them into our findings. And then I start talking them through it, making sure my intention is very clear, because my intention is only to help. And if they want me to help solutions and things like that, absolutely. We're there to help. We're there to help fix things. We're not there just to tear the doors down and go, you go, sorted. It's bug bounty, please. We're there to help, and we're there to make the security landscape a better place, generally. That's how I see things anyway. So leading with that, I think, is quite aggressive and not required in 9 times out of 10. I think a lot of the disclosures I've ever done previously, I haven't actually needed to get to the disclosure policy or ram it in someone's face or ram it down someone's throat, because if you approach it the right way, I tend to find the conversations go in the right direction where you just don't need to. If you develop that healthy relationship with whoever you are reporting to, you just don't need to. So that's interesting. That took a weird turn today, and I decided to get to that bit where I was reporting something today, and I was like, they had talked about fixes and things. They published new versions, sent us new versions of firmware and things. Are like, great, this is perfect. You fixed all the things we reported. Smashing. They've done a great job. Now, this latest one, which was perhaps the worst round of bugs we submitted to them, they sort of just came out and went, doesn't really affect your use case. I was like, what? Our use case? Yeah, we're not going to supply a fix for it. And I'm like, okay, right. And like, much bigger issues than the other ones we submitted. And so like, just what do you do at that point? They just literally can't be bothered and don't want to supply fixes. It's like, yeah, all of a sudden our policies don't really apply, because you're like, well, I guess you don't care about it. So, yeah, I think we can come across a bit heavy-handed as an industry. Weirdly, no one really teaches you how to do like disclosures properly. All the cybersecurity training we get from on a technical level, no one teaches you actually how to be that, how to disclose stuff responsibly, nicely, and professionally.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Weird.
That's a good point. And
we need a soft skills course.
yeah. Well,
yeah, actually. Well, it's kind of like scoping, right? How scoping is hard for pen tests. It's the same with like disclosure or delivering your reports. It's very hard, both as a pen tester, but also internally when you're working with developers or for open source projects. And I think also disclosure is hard because it depends a lot. Like every team you're disclosing to can be completely different.
Yeah.
So some of them like completely understand, and some of them you don't have to say anything. You can just send them like the title of a finding or just like the line number, and they're like, okay, got it, and they do everything else by themselves. but then some people will just argue with you. So it depends. I generally, initially, I was like, why are we even giving a 90-day disclosure timeline for an open source project?
Yeah, I feel sweet.
But then, so yeah, I think it should be flexible. But then I think some people mentioned that, well, essentially, if you found a bug right now and you report it, someone can independently find that bug at some point as well and choose to exploit it, right? And so it's kind of like the fact that I found a bug, I would want it to be known to the public so that users are aware if they need to take extra mitigation, like measures, whatever, and the developer also, so that they know they're putting people at risk. And I think the idea is like, well, because then if someone else independently discovers the bug, we're already like, on track to get it addressed either by the end user or by the maintainers.
That sort of the argument that a lot of people posted about that specifically, but like, revealing it publicly always was weird because so many open source projects, their issue trackers are public. Like all their bugs are public. There is basically a 0-day disclosure on most bugs in open source software anyway. So that struck me as like just weird that was a sort of a pinpoint as well. So yeah, anyway, that was all I wanted to comment on that bit. Just the responsible disclosure almost is always it's just disclosed immediately in open source software, for good or worse.
Yeah, so I was going to say before, I don't know if you can apply proper disclosure policies to open source. It works well with companies because giving them deadlines is nice, and especially if you're working on something closed source, you might not always have the necessary tools or contacts to be able to get directly to the point of talking about fixes and things. But open source, you're right, everything is laid to bear. You can see it's literally the definition of it. The problem is if you put a policy like that on them, who picks it up? Who goes and actually, you know what I mean? Who's going to actually do that and enact that fix? Who's actually got the responsibility? Can the maintainers actually assign someone? And then you got the different projects you're talking to as well. Some projects haven't been maintained in donkey's years, and the maintainers are either like dead or just like really can't be bothered with the project anymore.
Right.
And some of them, like Thumpeg, we're calling it that now. Again, I got it in the parody one, and then I'll bring it into the serious podcast now as well. Thumpeg is it's an active project. There are contributions to that all the time. It's not like a dead project. So there are things going on there. So I don't think you need that disclosure policy because if you start having a conversation with them on the project, with the maintainers or the contributors, you're going to get some traction with it pretty damn quickly, especially if it's a big thing. And there's also, if it is something compromising, it's not something you just want to have a casual public conversation about, because that could potentially affect a lot of innocent people out there that could, fall foul to something. Yeah. So you don't want to be doing that either. But, on the projects like that, I don't think you need a policy that goes 30 days or 90 days to them, because they're active enough to be out there and have a proper conversation with, and they do care about the project. So yeah, I don't think it's needed. I think it's needed for private companies and closed source, but maybe not for open source.
We've also done an episode on responsible disclosure, and I'm pretty sure in that we also talked about how responsible disclosure is a conversation, and it's very flexible generally. And how I've submitted a bug to a company, and I don't think we revealed it for a whole year, and it wasn't even necessarily that serious. It's just they kept me up to date with their plan of how they were fixing it, and they had to test it, and there was something wrong with the fix, so they had to so it was always, they were always like, oh, we're keeping you up to date. And it's like, ultimately I don't want to reveal this bug. The only reason I'm revealing it is because I found it. I felt like a little bit, I actually found something that's kind of cool. But like, I also want to make sure that companies that are serious, or even organizations, not even just using the word company, organizations that are serious about fixing security issues shouldn't be punished just because they're a bit slow sometimes. Like, if they get the fix in, then that's also ultimately what matters.
So I learned that when I used to be a pentester, I remember we had like recurring clients, like every year we'd pentest them. And so you would go on a pentest, you find a few bugs, come back the next year, and it's the same bugs. And I was like, why is it? Like, why are people like that? Like, why are they like, do they not care Like, and then when I went on I joined security engineering teams, and I realized like often prioritization is actually really hard from two sides. One is from the security side, like you have a never-ending list of bugs that keeps growing, and you have to address them, and which ones you address. And then on the other side, the developers themselves also have limited capacity to fix, which is similar to the open source problem. So I'm essentially using like a lot of political capital in convincing them which bug, like, I have 5 bugs, I can fix maybe one. I mean, I can maybe find the other mitigating factors to address the others. But then, like you realize, okay, it's very time consuming. It takes a lot of effort, takes a lot of, just people's time to go and fix everything. And so which ones do you want to fix? And so that, private company, open source company, it doesn't matter. They all have the same problem at different degrees.
Yeah.
It's a resource problem, really. And that's also highlights a point you mentioned, like what happens when the AI is finding, 1,000 bugs a second or whatever, what happens at that point?
It has been increasing. It has been increasing a lot. Like the number of CVEs by themselves, just like astronomical, exponential increase over the last few years. And so, and I see it on every team I join, every security team. You log into their dashboards and you have like a list of open findings, and it just grows. And like you have some companies that have like 87,000 unfixed findings coming from various tools, and it's not even surprising. Like people, we've gotten to a phase where we're starting to normalize the idea of like you're vulnerable to things, and that in itself is a risk, right? And so I think that was kind of one of the things that the FFmpeg account. So obviously it's a shitposting account. I don't think it represents all of the FFmpeg maintainers. Like a lot of them, like thing was fixed, and they went and complained about something that was fixed 2 months ago. I think, but through shitposting, they raised a few points that are interesting. And it's like, if some developers feel that we're getting slough reported, then that's minimizing the value of a lot of the findings being surfaced, regardless of if they're good or bad. Mm-hmm. And that is actually a big problem, because now you're normalizing the idea that you're going to receive a lot of findings. Mm-hmm. And do we care? And people will care less and less. Like, it's kind of like the more findings you have, the more you dilute the findings that are actually important.
Yeah. Yeah. And it just becomes an issue because, like, they have to review the findings anyway. You have to always review a finding because there's a chance. And
hopefully,
this is very true. This is very true in bug bounty. There's a chance that just the finding is wrong, and it's not an issue at all. And so if you have an automated AI bot hallucinating findings, like not only do you have to analyze them and they're wrong, but there's just more of them now. And previously you'd have a person actually physically typing up their wrongness, but now it's just, automated. And yeah, I agree. Like it's going to be an issue, and there's just no easy solution with AI becoming such a big part of everything. It's because even AI detection is sort of slowly just going away because AI is getting good at bypassing AI detection. Yeah, I don't know what the solution is. I definitely feel, if anything has come out of this whole thing, it's I definitely have more understanding of the problems that are facing developers than I did before. And I already thought I had a pretty good understanding because I've seen like the stuff going on with the curl project. The lead dev of the curl project has been extremely vocal about the AI vulnerability slop that he gets. At the same time, he's also credited when an AI has come along and given him something good. So he's not even necessarily anti-AI. He's just like...
So he came around. So he wrote initially the blog post of the SNAI Center for Security or SNL, whatever. But like recently someone published a blog post comparing static analysis tools that are meant to find bugs. And they were all like AI native static analysis tools. And through using them, he found a valid bug in curl and reported it. And I remember something like Daniel, the maintainer of curl, said something like, for once, like actually AI can sometimes find valid, good bugs and a good report. So yeah, you can, it's a tool. You can use any tool well, or you can have a half-assed attempt at using it and, make it worse for everyone. but that's why AI is exacerbating the issue of reports, and I think AI will also help in solving it. And we have seen patches come from AI. I think, was it called CodeMender, the Google one? But they have a
Something
separate,
like that.
yeah. So they have a separate project to issue AI fixes, and I think that seems very promising. So I think eventually that will be one of the major ways to address this problem.
Yeah, I think, and you brought that up. So I did send you this tweet in a DM. The Heather Adkins, who was a VP of security at Google, did a sort of response to the whole FFmpeg thing. It was more of a single chain of about 10 tweets.
Fumpeg.
Fumpeg, sorry. But yeah, they did mention Big Sleep and CodeMender are two projects, and they haven't sort of been joined together yet, but that was the ultimate intention, which is, interesting. But they did as well point to the fact that Google one of the issues was, send patches, or the $1 trillion company should be sending patches. And she did point out they do. There are a lot of at google.com email addresses assigned to patches in FFmpeg. So yeah, it's just sad because I still see a few comments now and then like, oh, Google were using this for free and they weren't contributing anything back. It's like,
right.
Yeah, but I mean, they were.
They were.
Because any time that sort of misinformation gets spread around, it kind of just dilutes the conversation a bit to the point where they were contributing. Were they contributing enough? Probably not. But to say that was
right, and that was like part of the problem. It's easy to hate on Google or anyone big, but that was part of the point that they were raising, was that it's disproportionate to how much they benefit from the library.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
which is, I mean, it's hard to assess how much should they be contributing. I don't know, what's the right amount?
Yeah, it's a tricky one. I think we're at an interesting crossroads with all this AI stuff. But I think we're living through the crossroad, literally right now. The crossroad is what is probably birthing all of these issues that we're seeing and all of these problems people are raising, and is it fair, etc. Like the sudden influx of lots of AI slop, and it's kind of its hit rate is sort of there sometimes and not other times. It's also being used to fix patches in other areas. I think we're living through an area where we're sort of crossing over between humans do everything and AI is helping everything, and it's accelerating issues and it's causing a few headaches, but I think in the future we're going to see it solving just as many as it is creating. It's a hopeful world, but
I agree, and I think this problem, we've had it before AI. Like you can go 10 years back and we had this exact same problem, maybe at a slightly smaller scale, but it's been an unaddressed problem by the entire industry, which is we have growing backlogs of vulnerabilities. Yeah. We can't afford to fix everything, and so what do we do? And every company had just like a huge backlog of these are all vulnerabilities, high severity, whatever, right? And we just never addressed it. It kept growing and nothing happened ever, right? And no one really invested more into trying to address the problem because, for many reasons, part of it is the tools sometimes have and not accurate. We're not going to talk about CVS, for example, but ranking vulnerabilities is difficult. But so it's been a problem for a while, and AI just kind of sped it up.
Yeah, it's turbocharged.
And so it made exactly. And so we found ourselves holy shit! It was already overwhelming, but now it's overwhelming on an exponential scale. Yeah. And so we're what now?
It's far more apparent and far more obvious, and people can see it.
Exactly.
When people see it, then it becomes a problem, and it gets splattered all over social media, every direction.
Exactly, which is good. I think it's a positive thing people are talking about this. And it encourages everyone to address the problem. And we have a potential solution, which is fixing code with AI. And I've been using Claude Code a ton. I'm a huge fan. Now, is it going to fix everything? No. Can it submit bad fixes, to your previous point? It can. Some fixes, I have seen it submit changes that were bad, that make things worse, that introduce other bugs. Much like humans submitting fixes, that's not a new problem, but definitely AI can do it as well. But I think a lot of bugs are just stupid. There's a lot of so many buffer overflows or just missing bounding checks or use after those aren't very complex bugs. And I think AI here would do a fairly good job in submitting fixes for those, adding a missing bounds check, for example.
Yeah. I think trust is a bit of a problem in that as well. I think we're at that crossroads where
Yeah.
we've got to get over that trust factor as well. Like AI is improving at an insane rate. Like even if you use it as to aid your coding practices, if you do much development, go back 6 months, even to a year, it was fucking terrible. There'd be like things you'd ask it to do, like, "Oh, make me this small function here," and it'd be like, "Okay, you've literally made up things within your like," and it's insane. Like, what's this function here? It doesn't exist, and but now it's actually quite fluid, and I find it a massive help for a lot of things. I'm slowly getting over my trust issues with AI. And it does still occasionally do the most fucked up things occasionally and does take me backwards like 4 steps on occasion. But I'm gradually getting over my trust issues with AI and getting to a point where I'm willing to let it do a few more things than I perhaps was. But like I said, we're at that crossroads, and I think it's very easy to trust it finding vulnerabilities. It's another thing trusting it fixing vulnerabilities. And I think that attitude will change and that viewpoint will change, and obviously the technology will improve and at an exponential rate as it has been over the coming years as well, and we'll learn that trust. So yeah, I think there's a very different world ahead of us.
Yeah, and the tools we use themselves have it. So like the AI tools themselves, overwhelming rate of change. Like it's hard to keep up. Yeah. But also a lot of the industry tools. So another example I've been thinking about a lot is static analysis tools. As I mentioned, there was a blog post about it that was really good. I forgot the author name. Maybe we can link it. But static analysis tools traditionally have fairly high false positive rate, at least for my standards. And so, like, you go to a code base, let's say, especially if you have like a massive C++ code base, let's say, you scan like the huge code base and you have 80,000 findings. That's a problem. What am I going to do with it? You're not going to send them to the developers. Like, what? Like, good luck, fix 85. And then they're going to start looking through them. So, the first 10 are false positive. What is this bullshit you're sending me? That's horrible, right? But so, like, and so the tools themselves have also been improving. And I'm seeing some of these, like, AI native static analysis tools seem very promising. Realize that we're extremely early and they're all just, like, trying things. Like initially it started out as like you're just a wrapper around like an API and LLM. Then I think this year, a few months ago, was it in around August, Claude Code released their security review command within it. So you can do like /security-review. And what it is, it's just like a series of like a few large markdown files that are just prompts. And it tells it like, look for SQL injection, look for potential like buffer overflow, like any RCE you find, like command injection, unsanitized input. It has like a predefined list of things, and the LLM just goes through them. It did find bugs, so I've used it a little bit. It did find bugs. It could also be like manipulated through a prompt inject. Like you can leave a comment saying like ignore the bug below, and it would just like not report it. But overall, it was able to find bugs. Now, the main problem with that was just it's unreliable. So because they're non-deterministic, you can run a security code review on a repo one time and you get, let's say, like 7 critical findings. You run it again without changing anything. You just run it again. And now it's, there's only 3 critical. You run it again, it's 14 critical. But that's not, you can't have a security tool give you a different number of, like, that's horrible, right? And so I think now what a lot of these companies are doing is they use the LM to orchestrate running different tools that is more similar to this traditional static analysis. Like you build like the abstract syntax tree of your code base, and then like you give it like very granular steps on what to do, and in between you have the AI like kind of like validate each step, and then you go to the next step. So it's kind of like a mix between an LLM and like a traditional static analysis tool. And those seem very promising in terms of like reliability. So I imagine we're going to start seeing that in all security tools we use, even on the pen testing side. Like I think Burp has Burp AI. I think you had a video on it. I haven't watched it yet, but I don't know if you found it useful. But I think, in general, all tools are going to start having features that help reduce false positives, essentially.
Yeah. I didn't find his video useful, if I'm honest.
I thought it was interesting.
Yeah, I didn't.
I definitely think it'll be useful as a tool, especially if we can connect it to a local LLM at some point, which would be nice. Because the main thing is sending customer data off to LLMs is on the internet. It's not a good
That's the
idea.
problem. I think we're straying into a different territory there.
Yeah, we're not even going. We're going to have Solst back for the 5th AI episode we've done. We'll do that. But
Yeah, the 5th AI episode. Yeah, however much ports we're going to say that it is, it's safe to do so. There is still that thing about sending stuff to a third party that is problematic. Yeah. Anyway, right.
Yeah,
I think.
I had one last thing
Go on then.
that I wanted to just briefly touch on, if that's okay, because it's been great conversation.
As long as you're not about to unmask yourself as Ali, I'm good. You crack on.
I was Ali all along.
Damn it, man.
So this was something that I had previously honestly been a fan of, and then it wasn't even FFmpeg, it was somebody responding to them about it. I think it was in relation to them misunderstanding Tavis or the whole Tavis thing. But there was somebody on X, and they pointed out that security researchers a lot of the time will come up with if they find a really serious bug, they'll come up with a name for the bug, right? It's like a named exploit. And a lot of these named exploits, they're good for marketing. They're good for getting awareness. A lot of them aren't that nice in terms of they're kind of almost like a direct insult to the project. And the example they used was Image Magic, which is image processing library. Yeah, and the bug was an RCE in image, and they called it Image Tragic. And not only that, they go and they register imagetragic.com, and now there's a website about Image Magic's bug. And it is useful, I will say. It's useful because it obviously, Image Tragic is a funny pun name. It does give some sort of marketing, right, to the bug, so people become more aware of it. But there was a good article which was like, well, if you think about it, the Image Magic vulnerability was only critical because people were passing user inputs to it randomly on websites. Mm-hmm. And it specifically said not to do that. So is it really like the fault of the developers? Like, did they really deserve to have this whole imagetragic.com website created, sort of dissing their product, even though realistically it kind of is a user error at the end. Like, you shouldn't really be feeding untrusted inputs into Image Magic anyway. So yeah, thoughts on that before we end?
I think it's a bit mean. I don't know. So I wrote down in my notes over here, same brush at some point. It's because we were talking about bounty and security researchers, and there's been a lot of this slinging crap both ways, and there's been a lot of painting. Literally, it just goes, security researchers don't care about it. We're not all the same person, We're all different people with different intentions and different ways about going about something. Not everyone does something the exact same way. People have different levels of responsibility, and personally, I wouldn't want to register something like that would slate someone's legitimate work they've contributed to the community for positive reasons. I don't just see the point in just being an ass, basically, and just going and registering something that slates someone. I think there's just a better way of handling it. I mean, there's a more professional way of handling it and talking to them. And at the end of the day, you report something, you've got a reputation to maintain as well. And if your reputation is that every time you find a bug, you make someone look like a complete dickhead, it's not a very nice thing to do, is it? But so, I think there's just a point here about just being a decent human at the end of the day. So, I can see why they do it. They do it for the lols, they do it for the clicks, but I don't know if it's the right thing to do at all. There's a far more professional way of doing it.
Yeah.
Personally,
I think the positive part is it's good as a learning tool. Like, I think a lot of students, it's like easy to teach. Like, hey, like go research Heartbleed, for example. Yeah. Right. Or like Spectra and Meltdown. So like kind of like academically, it's nice to have the logo and a name associated with something. And so I'm gonna make a project, understanding this thing. Because then if you want to go and like learn about CVEs, there's like an overwhelming amount of them. Not all of them are interesting. So I understand the like educational value of having a specific name and branding to evolve. Obviously, there's like gimmicky, lolsy, like social media content coming out of it as well. But it does highlight the problem with the security industry. I started like getting bored in conferences of the sort of talk that's look at how stupid this vendor is. They suck. And it's like this, we're so cool, we're so smart, we can find bugs. and these developers suck. That's such a toxic culture. And I think it's time for the security industry to grow out of it, because well, obviously they can make mistakes, developers can make mistakes, but usually it's not just, usually when you go and look into those vulns, like there's a lot more to it. And if you had to maintain your own project, there is going to be many vulns. Some of them might be devastating, right? And then like, how would you balance it out with all the different things you need to maintain? And then when you actually want to implement a fix, how easy is it? You know, how do you, and so, so I think we're also just like, culturally, we love to like heart bleed, you know, melt down all like negative, like devastating imagery, which I understand, like maybe it's fun to some, but I think the focus, it's okay to have branding for a few volumes, but the focus should be on the you know, the content and what you learn from it, rather than shaming the developer. And some of them, like, I think, you know, if it's a bug in OpenSSL, like who's open, you know, no one's like blaming any OpenSSL developer. Here, FFmpeg antagonize themselves a bit just because they're a posting account, and they kind of like bait people into hating on them a bit, you know? But yeah, as long as you're not like antagonizing the developers, as long as you're not like attacking them or mocking their competence, or like, oh, skill issue, oh, like, oh, you have a buffer overflow skill issue, like that's just childish. You know, like, it should be more, oh, I'm here to learn their perspective, actually.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Childish, that's a nice way of putting it. Yeah. Grow up. It is a bit, and it's just about being a decent human. And I think there were times probably in my past where I probably would have said similar things, especially as a junior. I mean, I know me and you, Tib3rius, as juniors, we probably run around going, oh, it was ridiculous vulnerability. This person's clearly incompetent.
Oh, yeah.
Like we've all been through that phase. But
we all do it.
I think, you know, looking back at it now, you sort of, and as you do start to develop more of your own, it is cringy, yeah. And as you start to develop some of your own products, like going on your own tools, you suddenly get a different appreciation for the world. You suddenly get appreciation from the other side of the fence. And if you, I also think being a pen tester helps a little bit as well, because we're always got to balance up what we're saying about clients and say their network is crap in the nicest possible way. And you grow up doing that. And I think you learn that sort of art of balancing telling someone some useful information without insulting them to make a productive conversation. That's what it's all about.
Exactly.
And if we're not doing that, then we're doing a massive disservice to community as a whole, really, I think. So, yeah.
Exactly.
Anyway.
I completely agree with what you said, especially it's a rite of passage. When you're like a junior pentester, you love like, oh, I popped a shell, oh, I destroyed this company. It's fun, you know, it's fine. Like you can do it in the beginning. But eventually, I think the most important thing you said is like, once you start building your own stuff, that's when you start realizing like, oh shit. And I think that's like for anyone working in security, like I think the best thing you could do is just try to build something yourself, because then you're putting yourself in the developer's shoes. So I really liked what Robert Graham was trying to do is, okay, like I'm gonna try to compile FFmpeg, or you know, let me like get into the developer environment and try to walk in their shoes. And I think that is by far the best thing you can do. It's hard. It's time consuming. You're not going to always know what you're doing, but that's the point. You're going to start realizing there's a lot of nuance and challenges with what goes into it.
But that will make, in the end, that's what makes your bug reporting so much better and so much more contextual. So much more. And when people always ask you like what to do to get into pen testing and some of that sort of stuff, build things. Go away, just build stuff. Exactly. If it's a network, if it's an application, if it's just buying a load of old Cisco crap off eBay, go and build something, because you'll get an appreciation for the other side of the fence. And do you know what? That will change your entire perspective of how you write issues, recommendations, and the way you carry yourself with clients as well. Yeah, infinitely different. So, yes, FFmpeg. Right, well, we've managed to squeeze an extra hour out of solst here.
Sorry for keeping you up late.
No, you're good. This is great. Well, thank you for listening. I've been Tib3rius. He's been Andy Swift. We've been joined by Solst, and this has been Across the Pondcast. You can find all of our social media links in the episode description or on acrossthepondcast.net, and we will see you next time.
Bye.
Hello and welcome to Across the Pondcast, a show where we talk and occasionally rant about cybersecurity topics with perspectives from both sides of the Atlantic. I am Tiberius. I'm joined, as always, by my open source co-host, Mr. Andy Swift, and today we're joined by Solst, a self-described security cryptid on the internet and the #1 hater of hacking, the art of exploitation, by John Erickson. Solst, welcome to the podcast.
Specifically want to call out the second edition. It's worse than the first.
Have you read the first? This is what
I read it when I was 5. It was as bad as it was today.
Excellent. Well, welcome. Andy, how are you doing?
I'm great. I've got my copy of Art of Exploitation ready for my nighttime reading tonight. But my little munchkin, I am good to go. Yeah, I'm very well. How are you?
I'm good. I just received the third edition because I am one of the proofreaders. So yeah, I'll be reading that later as well.
Amazing. Let me know how bad it is.
I will.
Send me a copy, please.
Before we start, this show is made possible thanks to our sponsors. If you want to sponsor an episode, please send an email to sponsors@acrossthepodcast.net for more details. Okay.
Thank you, sponsors.
Sponsors or non-sponsors?
Sponsored by John Erickson.
I wish they would send me like a stack of the books so I could give them out. I think that would be really helpful. If you're listening, No Search Press, send me like 30 of them. I will give them out at DEF CON.
Oh, man.
No need to take stickers. No, next year. We're just giving out.
There's a joke there that DEF CON being in Vegas, which is a desert, is a perfect place to give out copies of the driest book in cybersecurity.
Free kindling for your fires.
We didn't have a plan for this episode. It's just gonna be roasting, hacking the art of exploitation for an hour.
It's very hot in Vegas. I just step outside and I just burst into flames.
Yeah. Oh man. So, all right. I mean, do we want to start off with some context? Because for us, this has just happened. But depending on when this episode airs, or depending on when people listen to it, yeah. It's about FFmpeg this episode, and specifically about their Twitter account and the issue of security researchers finding vulnerabilities in open source software and not providing patches. And then there's just so much to this story. But effectively, I guess the short summary is Google's AI found a valid bug, right? So this wasn't necessarily an issue of AI slop, although there have been accusations that other things are AI slop. But in this particular case, there was a bug that Google's big AI vulnerability finding thing found, reported it, and it was fixed. It was patched relatively quickly as far as I could see, but it wasn't patched by Google. They just sent a bunch of bug reports to FFmpeg, and then after it had been patched, FFmpeg sort of used it as a springboard issue to complain about the general state of open source software development, specifically big companies that do this kind of thing but don't provide patches and also expect to get support. And then there was kind of some dissing of also just security researchers. Like that account went crazy for about 48 hours, I feel like. There was quite a lot of stuff going on. I haven't tracked it all. But I feel like that's the general summary.
Yeah, the timeline was flying.
Yeah.
It's literally all my feed was filled for like when I came back from holiday. I was like, oh, what has happened to the world? And I just came back like in the middle of this fight and I was like, okay, well, this is interesting. Everyone on my feed is literally talking about it. And it's what's mental about it, the whole thing. After like looking back over it, it's like you said when you started speaking, like this massive thing, and there's a lot to it. There's also a lot to it, but there's also not a lot to it as well. It's also like a pretty basic thing when you boil it all down. It's just people moaning, talking crap at each other. It did make me very angry.
Yeah.
At several points in time. I was like, nope, not gonna comment. But yeah, I took myself aside.
And the thing is, I think and I certainly largely agree with a bunch of the things that FFmpeg was saying. Like, I definitely agree that a big company like Google that has the ability to provide patches for these things probably should be providing patches. There are other things I disagree with, like the general case of if you're a security researcher and you find a bug. Like, I don't think there's a necessity to provide a patch, and you might not even be capable of providing a patch. Like, it is honestly probably easier to find bugs in code than it is to write decently secure code.
Absolutely.
In the first place.
Absolutely. And now more than ever with static analysis tools, AI tooling, things like that, finding bugs is easier than ever. And it's the more complex bugs that require more human logic and thinking, that require more complex solutions. And that kind of brings me to the question, like, when you get these more complex bugs, question for you two, do you feel like security people are competent enough to send accurate patches?
Depends on the project. I mean, some of these open source projects are insanely complex, and I wouldn't trust a researcher or some researchers who have just picked it up for, I don't know, I'll give something a bash for a weekend, and has managed to find some kind of noddy bug to submit a fully working and well considered and contextual patch for it. Yeah, no, I don't trust someone to do that. Some people absolutely, but no, not in general. I think I'm with Tib3rius on like what you mentioned earlier. Like, not everyone's capable of writing those patches, and it is very much easier to find them than not. So, yeah.
I mean, I agree. I had this in the show notes as like basically a question, almost the exact question that Solst just asked. And one of the bullet points I added under it was, are bad patch attempts more valuable to developers than no patch at all? Which is a question I can't answer because I'm not a developer. I mean, it might be that a bad patch is still useful, and it might be useful with no patch at all, but honestly, that's up to the developers. I mean, FFmpeg seemed to think that. But yeah.
I've got a better question. Do you think that companies like Google and other AI research companies should be paying open source contributors to prioritize their patches faster?
I think Google should be paying FFmpeg just generally because they make a lot of money off of FFmpeg. Like, YouTube is pretty much powered entirely by FFmpeg at the back end, or their own fork of it, which they commit patches upstream or something. But I think there's an argument that any big company, or realistically any company at all that uses open source software should at least be contributing in some way back to it, whether that's monetarily or by, if they write a patch for something or write a new feature to push that upstream. But yes.
Yeah.
Do you think that there should be a way for any company besides Google, like a pay-to-play for CVE fixes and for issue resolving for companies for their open source projects that they use? Do you think that people should pay to play?
That's a good question. I'm not sure, and I also think there's always going to be the issue of open source is open source in some way because they're mostly volunteer projects. And if you give money to an open source project, I don't think it should necessarily be like, it should necessarily allow you to control what they do with that money.
It's not contributing to open source in the way of like giving open source money in general, but say Google finds this bug and it is a critical bug that affects the YouTube's core functionality, makes every video on YouTube vulnerable. Should Google drop $1 million to FFmpeg to get FFmpeg to fix it as soon as possible?
I'm not sure.
Like a reverse blood bounty. Instead of FFmpeg paying Google, if Google needs this for their core product and they want to fix it, you're like, pay us and we'll do it.
I think if FFmpeg offered that, I wouldn't be necessarily against it. I also think in that specific situation, though, I imagine Google already has their own version of FFmpeg that they commit stuff to anyway.
Say in theory that they don't.
Then yeah, I don't think I would mind that happening. Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
It is interesting because Pug, as I'm calling them from now on, get on board with it, people. It's a new way of saying it. They've said multiple times on like their on X and on other publications that they're not employees. They don't like being treated as such by big corpos. But yeah, on the other hand, if big corpos were to give them an exceedingly large amount of money to do something, like the amount you mentioned, how would you feel about how they feel about that? I don't know. Would that change their minds? Is it the fact that they're not being given anything? I don't know the inner workings of it, to be honest. I don't know if they are getting contributions from Google. I don't know if Google are behind the scenes helping them with a bunch of stuff. I don't have visibility to that. I don't know if you guys have heard.
I'm super curious, kind of like from the top of this, all this started off as like an AI bug fighting situation. Do you two trust AI?
No.
Yeah. I think this kind of highlights the thing. I think they chose the wrong bug to get a bit uppity about, possibly because it was an AI bug. Like, I saw so many people in the comments, and I'm not accusing FFmpeg of doing this, but like, there were so many comments that spawned off of FFmpeg's tweet that sort of mischaracterized the entire situation, like as, oh, they're annoyed because Google are producing these AI slop CVEs.
Yeah.
Which this wasn't one.
Why are people mad at FFmpeg when Curl did the same thing months ago and no one batted an eye?
Right. Well, I think the thing is with Curl made valid complaints about this in the bug bounty space, and they weren't necessarily targeting a single company.
So it's because FFmpeg complained on Twitter?
No, I'm just saying, I'm not blaming FFmpeg. I think people get confused, possibly because FFmpeg's tweets are not professional, maybe? They don't have to be.
Well,
but
they're not a company here.
Yeah, no, I agree. But
it's just some dude all the way not on the internet. Let him live. If he wants to crash out on the FFmpeg Twitter account, let him live. Him or her or them.
Yeah, but I think my issue is like the mischaracterization by other people of this entire thing. But going back to your original question, which, like, I don't know if I necessarily trust AI to do this.
So you're not a planker.
I am sort of halfway between AI skeptic and, oh, we're going to replace everything with AI. Like, I'm solely in the middle, and I will defend my happy middle ground. I think it does some things really interestingly well, and then some things completely terribly. And it's a coin flip what you see sometimes.
If we flip that question, a little bit, and let's say we're happy with AI picking up on loads of rando simplistic bugs, are we happy with AI auto-submitting patches?
I mean, it's a better question of what do you two think of slop?
AI slop.
Yeah.
Creatively, it can be fun. I will say that, but this isn't creative. So I don't know if you use Sora or not. If you're on Sora,
deeply not.
Okay, I'm on Sora, and I didn't think Sora was a good idea when it started, because obviously, like, creating completely fake AI videos is like, okay, but why? It's kind of like weird, right? But at the same time, like, because the app is literally all AI videos, there is no possible way to submit any real video to Sora. It is just kind of a laugh. Like, you can scroll through a feed and find some actually funny videos that people have prompted. So while it's like, technically, yes, it's slop, I can't lie and say it hasn't provided entertainment. So in some cases, I think creatively, like the music, not the music videos, the music I've created.
It's with Suno, right?
Right, Suno, yeah. Sora and Suno now. So yeah, like, I'm not going to claim that the music I've made on Suno is good. All right? I'm not going to claim that.
So
I'm not going to claim I'm a musician.
By Luwu Underground?
I do, but they don't. They use AI overdubbing, I believe, and they actually
like
write all the music
themselves. Are they Hatsune Miku?
Well, as far as I'm aware, they write the music and they write the lyrics and they sing the lyrics. The AI bit is just it's effectively what you're doing now. It's a voice changer, as far as I'm aware. It's just AI powered.
Vocaloids are different. Vocaloids and AI rappers are different than voice modulation. I am using a voice modulator.
I mean, it's like, do you like the music by Luwu Underground?
Bangers. Listen to it every day.
Nice.
I'm so serious. Ooh,
Do you think
underground
it's-
unique music.
Yes, I agree. So I guess the real question is, at what point does it become slop?
Well, it becomes slop when you actively fall for a prank because this is Allie and Solst asked me to take this interview for you.
What the crap, Allie?
Let's go!
I'm enjoying that.
What the actual? Well, we just
My camera won't turn on. I've been trying to turn it on all day. Literally, my camera won't fucking turn on. Hold on. My camera literally will not turn on. I'm FaceTiming you, Tibbs, right now.
Oh my goodness!
Get your
I'm not gonna answer. What the hell,
Literally,
Allie?
get your phone. Get your phone for proof. Get your phone for fucking proof. Show it off. Show it off.
I mean, this isn't an episode now, so none of this is gonna matter.
I'm on the phone with Solst. He's right here. He's listening in. He's heard.
Oh, I can't believe that we went on for 20 minutes like that. Oh.
20 minutes of my Friday night I'm not getting back.
Yeah, this is
Yoga. I have a
of all
yoga
the
class.
times to do a prank, it's 20 minutes into 10 p.m.
We've been FaceTiming. I've been shaking. Shaking. Why won't my camera turn on?
I was thinking this was such a weird interview because, like, I was like, okay, I can kind of believe that this is like how Sol sort of speaks, but at the same time, it's like I've messaged him, and I'm like,
It was getting weird as it was getting weird as fuck. Not gonna lie.
He wasn't. We've been texting the whole time. He's like, ask these questions.
oh, that's a great prank. That was good. I
Yeah.
don't know if
But
any of it
now
can
I
end
sound
up
like
in the
Morgan
episode.
Freeman.
I don't know if any of it can end in the episode. But,
That's brilliant.
oh,
I enjoyed the layering
It's
of
okay, Tibbs. Never bring me on your fucking podcast. I don't want to be on it anyways, ever. Thanks for inviting me since you started it.
you're not in cybersecurity. You keep telling me these things. This
Yeah,
is
I
like a
know.
cybersecurity war stories podcast.
Yeah, I know. I don't want to be included.
I mean, technically, she's been on now, so we can check that off. Oh boy, that was good.
I like literally was texting him and I was like, how long do you think I could just let them talk at each other?
We don't talk, though. That's the point of this. It's like an interview.
I know. So then I started asking you questions and then you were like, what?
There's a layering of the questions.
They
as
were
they
interesting
built up.
questions.
It was quite funny. Like, he barely finished answering one question and another one came in. I was like, it's just, at some points I was just laughing, like just watching, like trying to watch Tibbs' face, just read his emotion.
As soon as you said the AI thing, I was like, this is it. Like, as soon as like the AI voice thing, I was like, okay, I got to drop it. I literally texted him, I was like, I'm doing it.
It was a good point to do it because it was like the question was oddly framed. Like, is the Underground AI slop because they use voice changes? Like, okay, but you're using a voice changer.
I know.
I wasn't expecting the voice changer at the start. Honestly, I thought, oh, okay, they're going to be coming on and using their real voice. Like, obviously, hiding face is fine. But yeah, I was all right with it. I'm like, if people want to use a fake
Is it
voice, that's
believable?
okay.
Was it believable?
It was at the start. It did get a bit weird. I was thinking, like, how are we going to even edit this?
I don't know. I needed something and this, I don't know.
This is definitely going to be an outtake.
Outtakes would be a good place. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Like, I would just upload the whole episode. I think it's hilarious.
Because there were, I can't remember the questions, but they were odd.
They
So
were
it's like-
odd. They were really odd.
No, like,
Good.
I
I'm
was
glad.
shaking. My heart was pounding when this started. Like, I thought I was about to have a heart attack. Oh my God. I'm so sorry.
Oh. No, I appreciate a good prank when it's pulled off. I'm glad it was revealed only 20 minutes into recording.
No. Listen, no one was
If we'd done the
hurt.
whole
No one
goddamn
was
thing.
hurt. No
No, I
one was
know.
mad. This is the definition of a good prank.
Yes.
I think we keep Ali on doing an episode just as punishment now.
I literally have yoga at 6:30.
Oh, well,
Oh, no, I have to cancel.
appreciate you taking your time out of your busy
God
schedule.
forbid.
Anyway, when you asked about Ali as well, that was funny.
That was me asking about me.
Yeah, I know.
I'm sorry
You're
about
like,
that.
that was Ali. Like, that was like.
You said you were friends.
And I'm like, I'm pretty sure like Solst would know that Ali and I had done stuff together, but
if you talk shit, if you had talked shit
Imagine.
about
why would I
me,
talk shit about? Why would I have talked shit
imagine
about
you're
you?
like, oh my god, yeah, she's a lot. Am I a lot?
I mean, arguably yes, Ali, but still,
You just got pranked so hard.
I did.
We need to start vetting people before we. Jesus Christ!
Yeah, this is the last time. This is the last time we invite a faceless internet person on our podcast.
We should have known. What the fuck?
I could be your anon. I think it was great. This is great. This is beautiful. I'm so happy this worked out.
I'm still recording. I don't know how much of this
Let's
we're gonna
keep this
use.
running. We're going to make something out of this.